The reservation was for 7 o'clock at Meridian, one of those trendy downtown restaurants where the waiting list stretched for months, unless you knew someone. Samantha Mitchell didn't know anyone, not anymore, but her friend Jess had pulled strings for this blind date, insisting it would change everything. Now running 5 minutes late in heels she rarely wore, and a dress she'd splurged on despite her tight budget, Samantha clutched her phone and scanned the crowded restaurant. Her palms were sweaty, her heartbeat irregular. This was her first date since the divorce 2 years ago, since becoming the sole provider for her 8-year-old daughter, Abby. "Table for one?" the hostess asked, clipboard in hand. "Actually, I'm meeting someone," Samantha said, smoothing her navy blue dress. "Reservation under Scott Parker?" The hostess glanced at her list and nodded. "Right this way." Samantha followed, weaving between tables of laughing couples and business associates. Every face was a blur as anxiety knotted her stomach. What was she thinking? She had no business dating. Between her job as an elementary school teacher, helping Abby with homework, and trying to keep their small apartment from falling apart, who had time for romance? Still, Jess had been relentless. "You deserve happiness too, Sam," she'd said. "You can't put your life on hold forever." The hostess gestured toward a corner table where a man sat alone, his attention fixed on his phone. Samantha hesitated, trying to match the figure to the description Jess had given. Tall, blonde hair, blue shirt. This man had dark hair and wore a charcoal suit, but in the dimly lit restaurant, details were easy to miss. Maybe Scott had changed his outfit, or Jess's description was off. Taking a deep breath, Samantha approached and cleared her throat. "Scott?" The man looked up, his piercing blue eyes meeting hers with momentary confusion before his expression softened. He wasn't at all what she'd expected. Older than the 32 years Jess had mentioned, probably closer to 40, with a face that spoke of experience rather than the boyish charm her friend had described. But there was something compelling about him, something in the intensity of his gaze that made her heart skip. "I'm afraid you've got the wrong person," he said, his voice deep and measured. "But please, have a seat anyway." Embarrassment flooded Samantha's cheeks. "I'm so sorry." "I thought that I was your blind date?" A smile played at the corner of his mouth. "I gathered that much." She should have walked away, should have asked the hostess to redirect her to the right table. Instead, drawn by something she couldn't name, Samantha slid into the chair across from him. "I'm Jack Hudson," he offered, extending his hand. "Samantha Mitchell," she replied, her smaller hand disappearing into his. "This is mortifying." "Don't be embarrassed. In fact, you've saved me from a rather dull evening alone," he gestured to the chair, "unless you'd prefer to find your actual date." Samantha glanced around the restaurant, suddenly aware she should be looking for the real Scott Parker. But the thought of navigating another awkward introduction after this mix-up made her stomach turn. Besides, there was something about Jack, a quiet confidence, an unexpected warmth that made the prospect of staying far more appealing than it should have been. "Maybe just for a minute," she said, setting her purse down, "until I gather my courage." 1 minute turned into 5, then 10, as Jack ordered wine, and they fell into surprisingly easy conversation. He asked questions and listened, really listened, in a way that made Samantha forget they were strangers. She found herself telling him about Abby, about teaching 3rd grade, about her love of photography that had once been more than a hobby. "And what about you?" she finally asked. "What brings you to Meridian alone on a Friday night?" Something flickered across Jack's face. Caution, perhaps. "Business dinner that got cancelled last minute. I decided to keep the reservation rather than go back to an empty hotel room." "You're not from here?" "No, I live in Chicago most of the time, but business brings me to Boston regularly." He took a sip of wine. "What about your date? Should I be concerned he's searching the restaurant for you?" The mention of Scott jolted Samantha back to reality. She'd completely forgotten why she was here in the first place. "Oh God, you're right." She scanned the restaurant again, guilt washing over her. I should at least tell him what happened, tell who what happened. A man appeared at their table, young, blonde, wearing a blue button-down, just as Jess had described. His expression was a mix of confusion and annoyance. "Scott?" Samantha asked, already knowing the answer. "Yeah, I've been waiting at the bar for almost 30 minutes. His eyes darted between Samantha and Jack. "I see you found other company." "It's not what it looks like," Samantha started, mortification creeping up her neck. "I accidentally sat at the wrong table and then decided my time wasn't worth waiting for," Scott finished, his tone clipped. Look, I get it. Blind dates are awkward. Next time, just send a text instead of letting me sit there like an idiot. He turned and walked away before Samantha could respond. Scott, wait, she called, half rising from her chair, but he was already weaving through tables toward the exit. Samantha sank back down, her face burning. That went well, she muttered. Jack watched her with an unreadable expression. For what it's worth, he didn't seem like your type. A surprised laugh escaped her. So you gathered that from 30 seconds of interaction? I've become a good judge of character. Necessary in my line of work. He paused, and anyone who doesn't give you a chance to explain isn't worth your time. The simple validation in his words eased some of Samantha's embarrassment. She'd spent 2 years feeling like she was failing at everything, motherhood, teaching, life in general, and here was this stranger treating her with a respect she'd forgotten she deserved. What exactly is your line of work? She asked, curiosity getting the better of her. Jack hesitated, swirling the wine in his glass. I run a company that develops sustainable energy solutions. That sounds impressive. It's just work, he said, dismissing the topic. Tell me more about your photography. The conversation flowed more easily than any Samantha could remember having in years. Jack asked about her dreams, what she would do if obstacles like money and time didn't exist. No one had asked her that in so long. She'd almost forgotten she had dreams at all. When the check arrived, Jack waved away her offer to split it. Please let me. Consider it an apology for derailing your evening. You didn't derail anything, Samantha said honestly. This was nice. Unexpected, but nice. Outside the restaurant, the autumn air was crisp with the promise of winter. Samantha wrapped her light jacket tighter around herself, suddenly aware that their unexpected encounter was ending. The thought brought a surprising pang of disappointment. Can I call you a car? Jack offered. I've got my own, thanks. Samantha hesitated, unsure of the protocol for saying goodbye to someone you'd accidentally met and spent 2 hours talking to like old friends. Well, thank you for salvaging what could have been a humiliating evening. Jack studied her face in the glow of the street lamps. Samantha, he began, then stopped. Something in his expression shifted, a decision being made. Would you have dinner with me tomorrow, intentionally this time? The question caught her off guard. Men like Jack, successful, sophisticated, undeniably attractive, didn't ask women like her on dates. Did they? And even if they did, what would be the point? He lived in Chicago. She had Abby to think about. This couldn't go anywhere. I have my daughter tomorrow, she said, the safest of many possible rejections. Bring her, Jack replied without hesitation. There's a place near the aquarium that serves the best ice cream in Boston. We could make an afternoon of it. The offer was so unexpected, so contrary to every dating rule Samantha had ever known, that she found herself nodding before reason could intervene. She'd like that. We both would. Jack's smile transformed his face, softening the lines around his eyes. I'll text you the details, if you're comfortable giving me your number, that is. As they exchanged phones to input their contact information, Samantha wondered what she was doing. This wasn't her. Impulsive, agreeing to meet a stranger again, involving Abby no less. Yet something about Jack Hudson felt different from any man she'd met before, different even from Rick, her ex-husband who'd walked out when parenthood proved more challenging than he'd bargained for. What Samantha couldn't know as she waved goodbye and headed toward her car was that Jack Hudson wasn't just any businessman, and the path their accidental meeting had set them on would change her life in ways she couldn't possibly imagine. Mum, is he your boyfriend? Abby asked, skipping alongside Samantha as they approached the aquarium's entrance. Her daughter's chestnut hair, pulled into uneven pigtails she'd insisted on doing herself, bounced with each step. No, sweetie. He's just a new friend, Samantha replied, adjusting her bag on her shoulder. She'd changed outfits 3 times that morning, settling finally on jeans and a soft green sweater. Casual but put together. Remember what we talked about. We're going to be polite, but you don't have to like him if you don't want to. Abby nodded solemnly. At 8, she'd developed a protective skepticism toward new people in their lives, a side effect of watching her father walk out the door and never really come back. Rick's occasional weekend visits had dwindled to holiday phone calls and child support checks that arrived with decreasing regularity. Jack stood waiting near the ticket counter, more casual than he'd been at the restaurant, in dark jeans and a light blue button-down with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. When he spotted them, his smile seemed genuinely pleased rather than obligatory. Samantha felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. You must be Abby, Jack said, crouching slightly to meet her daughter's eye level. "Your mum tells me you're something of a marine biology expert." Abby eyed him suspiciously. "Do you know the difference between a dolphin and a porpoise?" Jack tapped his chin thoughtfully. "Dolphins usually have longer beaks and curved dorsal fins, while porpoises have smaller mouths and triangular dorsal fins." He paused. "How'd I do?" Abby's eyes widened slightly. "That's right." She glanced up at Samantha. "Mum, he knows stuff." Samantha couldn't help but smile. Jack had clearly done his homework, something that impressed her more than she wanted to admit. Most men she'd known would have treated Abby as an obstacle to get past, not a person to connect with. Inside, Jack had arranged not just admission tickets but a behind-the-scenes tour. As they followed their guide through areas typically closed to the public, Samantha watched Abby's initial reserve melt away. Her daughter peppered the guide and Jack with questions, her face alight with curiosity and excitement. "How did you manage this?" Samantha whispered, when Abby was distracted by a touch tank. "I made a few calls," Jack said with a casual shrug that suggested such things were easy for him. "The aquarium has a conservation partnership with my company. Your sustainable energy company works with the aquarium." Something flashed in Jack's eyes, hesitation perhaps. "Among other organizations, yes. We fund marine protection initiatives." Before Samantha could ask more, Abby called her over to feel the smooth skin of a stingray. The moment passed, but questions lingered in Samantha's mind. There was clearly more to Jack Hudson than he was sharing. After the aquarium, they walked to the nearby ice cream parlor Jack had mentioned. Abby skipped ahead, energized by the day's adventures, while Samantha and Jack fell into step beside each other. "She's remarkable," Jack said, watching Abby. "Smart, curious, perceptive." "She gets the perceptive part from necessity," Samantha admitted. "When kids go through upheaval, they develop radar for people's intentions." "Her father?" Jack asked quietly. Samantha nodded. "Rick decided fatherhood was cramping his lifestyle. He left when she was 6. His loss," Jack said simply, but the edge in his voice suggested deeper feeling. "Some people don't recognize value when it's right in front of them." At the ice cream shop, Jack won more points with Abby by suggesting they all try each other's flavors, a sticky, laughing affair that left Samantha feeling lighter than she had in months. She couldn't remember the last time she'd been out with Abby without checking her watch, calculating budget constraints, or worrying about the next day's lesson plans. As the afternoon waned, Jack received a phone call that he stepped away to take. His expression turned serious, the carefree demeanor of the day replaced by something more commanding as he spoke in low tones. "Everything okay?" Samantha asked when he returned. "Just work," he said, his smile returning but not quite reaching his eyes. "Unfortunately, I need to cut our day short. There's a situation that requires my attention." Disappointment clouded Abby's face. "But you promised to show me pictures of the reef project." "Abby," Samantha warned gently. "It's okay," Jack assured her. "I did promise." He knelt down to Abby's level again. "How about I email them to your mom, and maybe next time I'm in Boston we can go to the Museum of Science? I hear they have a lightning show that's pretty spectacular." Abby brightened at the prospect. "Next time like tomorrow." Jack laughed, a rich sound that made Samantha smile despite herself. "Not tomorrow, unfortunately, but soon, I promise." He walked them to their car, and while Abby climbed into the back seat, Jack turned to Samantha. "I'm sorry about this. Business emergencies are the downside of my position. No need to apologize. We had a wonderful day." Samantha hesitated. "Thank you for including Abby. Most men wouldn't have." "Most men are fools," Jack replied, his gaze intent. "Samantha, I'd like to see you again, both of you, if that's okay." "You live in Chicago," she reminded him gently. "And we just met. This is complicated, I know." He ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking less like the confident businessman and more like someone taking a risk. "But I find myself thinking about you, about your passion for teaching and photography, about how your whole face changes when you talk about your students, about the way you see the world." Samantha felt her cheeks warm. No one had talked to her like this in years, maybe ever. "Jack, just think about it," he said. "I'm in Boston every other week. We could take it slow, see where it leads." Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. Glancing at the screen, Samantha saw a text from her landlord. Reminder: rent increase effective next month. New rate $1,800. Her stomach dropped. An extra $300 was impossible on her teacher's salary. They were barely making it now. "Everything okay?" Jack asked, noticing her expression. Fine, she said automatically, tucking her phone away. Just a reminder. Jack studied her face, but didn't press. I should let you go, I'll call you? Samantha nodded, mind still reeling from the text. As Jack walked away, reality came crashing back. The constant financial struggle, the precariousness of her situation, the vast gap between her world and Jack's. The next morning, Samantha woke to an email notification. Jack had sent the promised reef photos to share with Abby, along with a note. Samantha, I can't stop thinking about yesterday. There's something rare and genuine about you that I haven't encountered before. I understand your hesitation. Our lives are different and distance complicates things, but I believe some connections are worth exploring despite obstacles. I'll be back in Boston next Thursday. If you're willing, I'd like to take you to dinner. Just you this time. There's a photography exhibition opening at the Gardner Museum I thought you might enjoy. Whatever you decide, thank you for a perfect afternoon. Jack, as Samantha stared at her phone, another email arrived. This one from her landlord with the formal rent increase notice, followed by an overdraft alert from her bank. The contrast between these messages, between Jack's world and hers, couldn't have been starker. At school that Monday, Samantha was distracted, thinking about Jack's invitation and her mounting financial pressures. During her lunch break, she searched his name on her phone out of curiosity. What she found made her nearly drop her sandwich. Jack Hudson, CEO of Hudson Core Technologies, named among Forbes' 30 most influential leaders in clean energy. The article showed Jack in a tailored suit, looking every inch the powerful executive at a global climate summit. The estimated value of his company, $3.7 billion. Samantha's mind raced. Why hadn't he mentioned this? Why was a billionaire CEO interested in a struggling single mother and elementary school teacher? Was this some kind of game to him? That evening, after putting Abby to bed, Samantha finally called him. You didn't mention you were a billionaire, she said when he answered, skipping pleasantries. A pause. Would it have changed anything if I had? Of course it would. Jack, we live in completely different worlds. You run a global company. I can barely keep up with my rent increases. Do you think I care about that? His voice was gentle but firm. Samantha, money is just a resource, not a personality trait. I wanted you to know me, not my bank account. But why me? Why would someone like you be interested in someone like me? The question escaped before she could stop it, voicing the insecurity that had been building since she'd discovered who he really was. Because you're real, he answered without hesitation. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Everyone wants something, connections, investments, status. You sat at my table by accident and then treated me like a person, not a balance sheet. Samantha fell silent, unsure what to say. Part of her wanted to believe him, while another part warned this was too good to be true. Men like Jack Hudson didn't fall for ordinary women like her. There had to be a catch. The exhibition is Thursday at 7, Jack continued when she didn't respond. No pressure. If you decide not to come, I'll understand. He paused. But I hope you will. After they hung up, Samantha sat on her small balcony, staring at the city lights. Her sensible side said to end this now before Abby got more attached, before she herself got hurt. But another voice, one that had been silent for too long, whispered that maybe, just maybe, she deserved to see where this unexpected path might lead. She didn't know then that Jack Hudson was carrying secrets of his own, complications that would test whatever was growing between them, or that her decision about Thursday's invitation would set in motion events that neither of them could have anticipated. Samantha stood before the mirror in her bedroom, examining her reflection. She'd splurged on a simple black dress for tonight, nothing extravagant, but more elegant than anything she'd worn in years. The exhibition at the Gardner Museum represented more than just an evening out. It was a conscious step into Jack's world, despite her reservations. You look pretty, Mum, Abby said from the doorway, already in her pajamas. Mrs. Winters from next door had agreed to stay with her for the evening. A rare night out for Samantha. Thank you, sweetie. She knelt to Abby's level. You're sure you're okay with me going out tonight? Abby nodded. Is it with Jack? The one who knows about porpoises? Samantha smiled. Yes, that's the one. Good. I like him. Her daughter's simple assessment carried more weight than all of Samantha's anxious deliberations. He looks at you like you're special. Does he now? Samantha asked, touched by her daughter's perception. Uh-huh, not like Daddy used to. Abby's matter-of-fact tone made the observation all the more poignant. After settling Abby with Mrs. Winters, Samantha took a rideshare to the museum, her stomach fluttering with nerves. Jack waited at the entrance, looking devastatingly handsome in a dark suit that highlighted the breadth of his shoulders. When he saw her, his expression softened in a way that made her momentarily forget all her doubts. "You came," he said, taking her hand. "I almost didn't," she admitted. "What changed your mind?" Samantha thought of Abby's words. "Let's just say I got some wise advice from an 8-year-old. The exhibition featured environmental photography from around the world, pristine landscapes juxtaposed with human impact. Jack guided her through with a hand lightly at the small of her back, his knowledge of the subject matter impressive but never condescending. "This is actually why I first came to Boston," he explained, as they stood before a haunting image of melting glaciers. "The photographer, Daniel Reeves, is an old friend. His work documenting climate change helped inspire Hudson Corps' first major project." "Which was?" Samantha asked, genuinely interested. "Solar microgrids for remote communities in Alaska facing coastal erosion." Pride colored his voice. "We developed a system that could withstand extreme weather while providing reliable power during relocation efforts." As Jack spoke about his work, Samantha glimpsed the passion behind his success. Not just business acumen, but a genuine desire to create meaningful change. It made him more real, more accessible, despite the wealth that separated them. After the exhibition, they walked to a small, intimate restaurant nearby. Over dinner, conversation flowed easily between shared interests and gentle teasing. Jack asked about her photography, not with polite disinterest, but with genuine curiosity. "I'd love to see your work sometime," he said. Samantha laughed softly. "It's nothing like what we just saw, just amateur stuff." "I doubt that," Jack countered. "You have an eye for detail and beauty. I noticed it the first night we met." His compliment warmed her, but uncertainty lingered. "Jack, what are we doing here? You live in Chicago. I'm rooted in Boston. You run a billion-dollar company, and I—" "Don't do that," he interrupted gently. "Don't reduce us to circumstances and balance sheets." "But these aren't small differences," Samantha persisted. "These are fundamental gaps in our lives." Jack reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. "Only if we let them be." His phone buzzed then, again and again in rapid succession. Glancing at it, his expression turned serious. "I'm sorry. I need to take this." He stepped away, speaking in low, urgent tones. When he returned, the carefree demeanor had vanished. "I apologize, but there's a situation I need to handle. Would you mind if we cut dinner short?" Disappointment washed over Samantha, but she nodded understanding. "Of course. Is everything okay?" "Nothing catastrophic," he assured her. "Just business that can't wait." Outside, Jack's driver was already waiting with a sleek black car. "Let me take you home," Jack offered. In the back seat, tension radiated from him as he responded to emails on his phone. This was a different Jack than the attentive man from dinner. This was the CEO handling whatever crisis had arisen. Samantha found herself studying his profile, wondering if this was the reality behind the charm. Would she always come second to business emergencies? "I'm sorry about this," Jack said again as they pulled up to her apartment building. "I wanted tonight to be perfect." "It was lovely," Samantha assured him, though the evening's abrupt end had revived her doubts. "Thank you for showing me the exhibition." Jack gazed at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Samantha, I know this is complicated, but I'm not walking away unless you ask me to." Before she could respond, he leaned in and kissed her, a gentle touch that deepened when she didn't pull back. Warmth spread through her body, awakening feelings long dormant. "Good night, Samantha," he whispered when they parted. "I'll call you tomorrow." Inside her apartment, after thanking Mrs. Winters and checking on a sleeping Abby, Samantha couldn't quiet her racing thoughts. Jack Hudson was unlike anyone she'd ever known. Thoughtful, passionate, successful. But the interruption tonight was a reminder of the reality gap between them. True to his word, Jack called the next day, and every day after for the next week, even after returning to Chicago. They talked about everything and nothing. Abby's school projects, Jack's travel schedule, Samantha's photography dreams. What had started as an accidental meeting was evolving into something real despite the distance and differences. 2 weeks later, Jack surprised her with a weekend invitation. "I want you and Abby to come to Chicago," he said over the phone. "I can send the company jet Friday after school. There's something I want to show you." "Your company jet?" Samantha echoed, the casual mention of such luxury jarring her. "Jack, that's excessive. It's already flying here anyway," he countered. "And yes, I want to impress you a little. Is that so terrible?" His honesty made her laugh despite herself. "I'll think about it." That evening, as Samantha helped Abby with homework, a knock came at their door. Outside stood a courier with a package addressed to her. Inside was a professional camera, not just any camera, but a top-of-the-line model she'd mentioned admiring once during their conversations. Along with it was a note in Jack's handwriting, "For capturing new beginnings. Your talent deserves the right tools." Stunned, Samantha called him immediately. "Jack, I can't accept this. It's too much." "It's not charity, Samantha. It's belief in your talent." "But, please," he said simply, "let someone do something nice for you without questioning motives or worthiness." His words struck a chord. How long had she been the strong one, refusing help, doing everything alone? "Thank you," she whispered finally. "It's incredible." "Does this mean you'll come to Chicago?" 3 days later, Samantha found herself stepping off a private jet with Abby, both of them wide-eyed at this glimpse into Jack's world. He waited on the tarmac, his smile brighter than she'd ever seen it, as he scooped Abby into a hug before kissing Samantha hello. The weekend was magical. Jack showed them Chicago from a perspective few experienced. A private architectural boat tour, dinner at a renowned chef's table, a children's museum opened specially for them on Sunday morning. He was attentive, present, never checking his phone or mentioning work. Saturday afternoon, while Abby napped in the guest room of Jack's downtown penthouse, he led Samantha to his home office. "There's something I want to discuss with you," he began, suddenly serious. "An opportunity I think you'll be interested in." Samantha's curiosity piqued. "What kind of opportunity?" "Hudson Corps has a foundation that funds environmental education programs. We're launching a new initiative focused on teaching children about conservation through photography." He paused. "We need someone to direct it, someone with teaching experience and a photographer's eye." Realization dawned slowly. "You're offering me a job, a career," Jack corrected. "Leading a program you would help design, with a salary that reflects the importance of the work. It would mean relocating to Chicago, but—" "Wait," Samantha stepped back, confusion and hurt flooding her. "You created a job for me?" Jack looked puzzled by her reaction. "Not exactly. We've been developing this initiative for months. When I realized how perfectly you fit the role, it seemed like serendipity." "Serendipity," she repeated flatly. "Or convenient timing to solve the long-distance problem." "That's not fair," Jack said, a hint of frustration entering his voice. "This is a legitimate opportunity, Samantha, one you're qualified for regardless of our relationship." "A relationship that's barely begun," she pointed out, "and now you want me to uproot my life, my daughter's life, to move across the country for a job you're creating." "I thought you'd be excited," Jack said, bewilderment evident. "This combines your two passions. The salary would solve your financial concerns. Abby would have access to the best schools. So this is about fixing me? About solving all my problems with your money and influence?" Jack ran a hand through his hair, visibly struggling to understand her reaction. "That's not what I meant. I just want to help." "I know." Samantha's voice softened slightly. "But Jack, this feels orchestrated, like you're trying to fit me into your life on your terms." The air between them crackled with tension. Before Jack could respond, his phone rang. The special tone he'd mentioned was reserved for emergencies. With a glance at the screen, his expression changed. "I have to take this," he said, his voice clipped. "We'll finish talking later." Samantha nodded stiffly, leaving him to his call. In the guest room, she checked on Abby, still peacefully asleep, unaware of the sudden complication in what had been a perfect weekend. Hours passed. Jack remained locked in his office, occasionally visible through the glass walls as he paced, deep in heated conversation. When he finally emerged, his face was grim. "I need to fly to Washington tonight," he announced. "There's a situation with the energy secretary that requires my immediate attention." "On a Saturday?" Samantha asked, unable to hide her disappointment. "Unfortunately, yes. I've arranged for you and Abby to stay here until your scheduled return tomorrow, or you can take the jet back tonight if you prefer." "We'll stay," Samantha decided, unwilling to wake Abby from her first experience in a place with a bathtub big enough to swim in. Jack's expression softened as he approached her. "I'm sorry about earlier. I didn't present the opportunity well. It wasn't meant to pressure you or solve your problems. He paused. "I see a future with you, Samantha. One where we build something meaningful together." The sincerity in his voice made her resolve waver. "Jack, think about it," he said. "That's all I ask. No pressure, no timeline." After he left, Samantha wandered the expansive penthouse, feeling out of place among its sleek luxury. On Jack's desk, she noticed a folder he'd left open, blueprints for what appeared to be a massive coastal development. Curious, she glanced closer. The project name caught her eye. Oceanside Meadows. With a jolt, Samantha recognized it as a pristine wildlife sanctuary near Boston, one she'd visited with her students, one of the few undeveloped coastal areas remaining in the region. Next to the blueprints lay a press release draft. Hudson Core Technologies announces partnership with Terraform Developments for innovative smart city project. Horror washed over her as she scanned the details. Jack's company wasn't protecting the sanctuary. They were developing it into a sustainable luxury community. The press release touted environmental technology that would minimize impact, but the blueprints told a different story. Hundreds of high-end homes where unspoiled marshland now stood. The man who had spoken so passionately about conservation, who had built his reputation on sustainable solutions, was planning to destroy one of the last natural habitats on the Boston coastline and using green technology as cover for luxury development. As the realization sank in, Samantha felt a sickening sense of betrayal. Jack Hudson wasn't who he'd claimed to be, and their meeting at Meridian suddenly seemed far less accidental than she'd believed. The flight back to Boston felt interminable, with Abby chattering excitedly about Jack's penthouse, while Samantha's mind raced with questions. The development plans she'd discovered haunted her, page after page of ecological destruction disguised as progress. Was this the real Jack Hudson? Had everything been a calculated move to silence potential opposition? Her phone buzzed with Jack's fourth call since they'd landed. Samantha silenced it again, still unprepared to confront him. She needed time to think, to process the betrayal that sat like a stone in her chest. "Why isn't Jack calling us on FaceTime?" Abby asked as they entered their apartment. "He promised to show me his dog when he gets back from Washington." "He's probably still busy, sweetie," Samantha replied, setting down their bags. The contrast between Jack's luxurious penthouse and their modest apartment had never felt more stark. "Why don't you unpack while I start dinner?" Alone in the kitchen, Samantha finally allowed herself to examine the photos she'd discreetly taken of the development plans. The more she studied them, the more her anger grew. Oceanside Meadows was home to endangered shorebirds and vital wetlands. Her students had planted seagrass there last spring as part of a conservation project. And Jack, a man who claimed to care about the environment, who had built a fortune on sustainable energy, was planning to pave it over for luxury homes. When her phone rang again, Samantha almost ignored it, but something made her check the screen. It wasn't Jack, but Jess. "So?" her friend demanded without preamble. "How was the Chicago adventure with Mr. Billionaire?" "Complicated," Samantha replied, keeping her voice low so Abby wouldn't overhear. "Jess, I need to ask you something. The blind date with Scott, was that actually a setup?" "What? No, of course not. Scott's my cousin's friend, remember? Why would you ask that?" "Because I think Jack might have engineered our meeting." Samantha's voice caught. "I found plans in his office. He's developing Oceanside Meadows into luxury housing." Jess gasped. "The sanctuary? But that's protected land, isn't it?" "Apparently not enough. And now I'm wondering if he sought me out because I volunteer there with my students. Maybe he thought dating the local teacher would help smooth over community objections." "That's paranoid, Sam. From everything you've told me, the guy is crazy about you. Then why hide this from me? He knows how much conservation matters to me." Samantha pinched the bridge of her nose. "I need to know the truth." After putting Abby to bed, Samantha finally called Jack back. "Samantha." Relief colored his voice. "I was worried when you didn't answer. Did you get home okay?" "We need to talk," she said, bypassing pleasantries, "about Oceanside Meadows." A long silence followed. "You saw the plans," he finally said, his tone carefully neutral. "Were you ever going to tell me? Or was I supposed to find out when the bulldozers showed up?" "It's not what you think," Jack began. "Really? Because it looks like you're destroying a wildlife sanctuary for profit while claiming to be an environmental champion." Anger sharpened her words. "Was that why you sought me out? To neutralize the local teacher who brings her students there?" "What? No!" Genuine shock filled his voice. "Samantha, our meeting was completely coincidental. I would never..." "Then explain the development. Explain how someone who claims to care about conservation could destroy one of the last natural habitats on our coast." Jack exhaled heavily. "I was going to tell you this weekend before we got interrupted. It's complicated, but if you'll give me a chance to explain in person..." "I'm not coming back to Chicago," Samantha cut in. I know. That's why I'm already on my way to Boston. The next morning, Samantha dropped Abby at school with a heavy heart. She'd barely slept, torn between her feelings for Jack and the evidence of his betrayal. They'd arranged to meet at a coffee shop near the school, neutral territory. Jack was already waiting when she arrived, looking exhausted in rumpled clothes that suggested he'd come straight from an overnight flight. Despite herself, Samantha felt a flutter at seeing him, quickly squashed by the memory of those blueprints. Thank you for meeting me, he said as she sat down across from him. I want the truth, Jack. All of it. He nodded, pushing a folder toward her. First, I want you to see these. The complete plans. Reluctantly, Samantha opened the folder. Inside were detailed documents, environmental impact studies, conservation agreements, and redesigned blueprints that looked significantly different from what she'd seen in Chicago. I don't understand, she murmured, flipping through pages that outlined preservation of over 80% of the sanctuary. What you saw was Terraform's original proposal. My company acquired controlling interest in the project, specifically to stop it. Jack leaned forward, intensity in his eyes. Oceanside Meadows was already sold to developers last year. By the time we learned about it, the only way to save it was to buy into the project and transform it from within. Samantha frowned, scanning the documents. These plans only develop the northern section, the part that's already bordered by commercial properties. Yes, we've redesigned everything to create a buffer zone around the sanctuary. The housing development is scaled back by 70%, and we're establishing a permanent conservation trust for the wetlands. Jack ran a hand through his hair. It's not a perfect solution, but it was the only way to save most of the sanctuary. Why keep this secret? Why not announce what you were doing? Corporate politics. Jack's expression hardened. Terraform has powerful backers who would have blocked our intervention if they'd known our intentions. We had to move quietly until the new conservation easements were legally established. He paused. The trust documents were finalized yesterday. That's why I had to rush to Washington. The Energy Secretary was witnessing the agreements. Samantha sat back, processing this new information. It aligned with the man she'd come to know, not the developer she'd feared. Why didn't you tell me? I was going to. That's what the job offer was partially about. I wanted you to run the sanctuary's education center, but then we argued and everything went sideways. His eyes held hers. Samantha, I would never lie to you about something that matters this much to both of us. She wanted to believe him desperately, but caution held her back. The timing of us meeting still seems too convenient. Jack reached for his phone, pulling up an email and sliding it across the table. My original reservation at Meridian that night was with Bernard Lowell, a potential investor. He cancelled an hour before. I decided to keep the table rather than go back to an empty hotel room. He scrolled to show the cancellation notification. Meeting you was the definition of serendipity, the best kind of accident. Relief washed over Samantha, followed quickly by embarrassment. I jumped to conclusions. With good reason, Jack acknowledged. I should have been more transparent about the project once we started seeing each other. I just wanted to make sure it was legally secure before discussing it publicly. They sat in silence for a moment, the tension between them slowly dissolving. So what happens now? Samantha finally asked. That depends on you. Jack reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. I meant what I said in Chicago. I see a future with you, Samantha, and with Abby. I'm not asking you to uproot your life anymore. The education center will be here in Boston if you want to run it. And us, the distance? I've been thinking about that too. A smile touched his lips. Hudson Corps is opening an East Coast headquarters. I'll need to be in Boston at least 2 weeks each month. The rest of the time we figure it out together. He squeezed her hand gently. I'm not asking for promises, just a chance to see if we can build something real. Samantha studied his face, the sincerity in his eyes, the nervous hope in his expression. This wasn't the calculating businessman she'd feared, but the man who'd remembered Abby's love of marine biology, who'd listened to her dreams when everyone else had forgotten to ask. One condition, she said finally. Anything. No more secrets, not even well-intentioned ones. Jack's smile broadened. Deal. 6 months later, Samantha stood at the edge of Oceanside Meadows, watching as Abby led a group of elementary school students through the newly established boardwalk path. The education center, her education center, had opened last month, already becoming a favorite field trip destination for schools across the region. Ms. Mitchell, look what we found. A student held up a small crab, carefully cradled in an observation container. That's a female blue crab, Samantha explained, kneeling to the child's level. See the red on her claws? The males have blue. As the children clustered around, Samantha felt a familiar presence beside her. Jack had arrived yesterday from Chicago, his third visit this month. Each time he stayed longer, the departures growing more difficult for all of them. "You're a natural," he said softly, as the students returned to their exploration. "I knew you would be." Samantha smiled up at him. Having the right tools helps. She patted the professional camera hanging from her neck, the one he'd given her, now used daily for both teaching and her growing portfolio. Next month, her photographs of the sanctuary would be featured in a conservation magazine. "Walk with me?" Jack asked, offering his hand. They strolled along the water's edge, where preserved wetlands stretched as far as the eye could see. In the distance, construction had begun on the redesigned development, a modest, environmentally integrated community that would help fund the sanctuary's ongoing protection. "I received an interesting offer yesterday," Jack said as they reached a secluded outlook. "Another business opportunity?" Samantha asked, having grown accustomed to his constant stream of projects. "In a way." He turned to face her. "The board wants to make the Boston office the company's primary headquarters." Samantha's eyes widened. "You'd move here permanently?" "If I had a compelling reason to," Jack replied, his expression soft with meaning. "I think Abby would consider that a very compelling reason," Samantha said, her heart racing. "She's been asking when you'll stay for good. And what about her mother?" Jack stepped closer. Would she consider it compelling too? Over the months since their confrontation, something profound had grown between them, a partnership built on shared values and mutual respect. Jack had integrated himself into their lives with patience and care, never pushing but always present. Abby adored him, and Samantha had found herself falling deeper in love with each passing day. "I think," Samantha said carefully, "her mother might find it very compelling indeed." Jack's smile was radiant as he reached into his pocket. "I was hoping you'd say that." He opened his hand to reveal a small velvet box. Samantha's breath caught as he dropped to one knee before her, the ocean breeze ruffling his hair. "Samantha Mitchell, I sat at a restaurant table 6 months ago with no idea my life was about to change. You walked into the wrong dinner and somehow into exactly the right place in my heart." Jack opened the box, revealing a simple but stunning ring. "I love you, I love Abby. I want to build a family with you both. Will you marry me?" Tears blurred Samantha's vision as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes." As Jack slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to kiss her, Samantha marveled at how completely her life had transformed. From a struggling single mother to the director of a conservation center, from lonely evenings to a future filled with love, all because she sat at the wrong table and met a man who changed everything. Behind them, the sanctuary stretched, protected and pristine, a symbol of what could be saved with determination and vision, and before them stretched a future they would build together, just as unexpected and beautiful as the night they first met.